All right. All right, everybody seems to be looking for this time. Okay.
Looks like we're ready to go. Thank you so much for your patience.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it looks like we have a quorum if Heidi and Mirta turn their cameras on. So we will go ahead and get started and call administration and finance to order. And if you could post the public participation slide for a minute, and I'll read off that information and then we'll do roll call.
That sounds good. I'll do that right now. There we go. Yeah, let's share the screen.
And if anyone's watching, we did have some technical difficulty getting the meeting started, but we're now in. And if you are watching this meeting, you can always Zoom into the meeting to give public comment. Other ways to contact council are to leave us a voicemail at 552-6012. You can also email us at council@ci.missoula.mt.us. Thanks. I think that'll do it. And let's do roll call, Lisa.
All right. So, okay, so Stacy Anderson. No Stacy today? Okay. All right. Oh, sorry. Hold on. I'm having e-scribe issues. Hang on one quick second here. Okay. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys.
And if you want me to do it, I can do it also.
Okay, Gwen, do you mind? I'm sorry.
No,
Technical issues again. Go for it.
Anderson is gone. Becerra.
Present.
Contos is gone. Harp is gone. Hess is gone. Jones is present. Merritt.
Present.
Present.
I think I've got it for some reason. My roll call, I don't know what I did.
Von Lossberg.
Present.
West.
Present.
Cheryl.
Present.
And Vasika.
Present.
I think I got everyone. I have a different computer without my little list on it, but I think good. Okay. We have meetings from the February 3rd, 2020 minutes from the February 3rd, 2021 meeting. Were there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, those will stand approved. And is there any public comment on items not on the agenda? Double check. I do not see any. Okay, so today our committee business is we have appointments to the Public Art Committee. We have one spot, and I believe, let's see if I have any, no information there yet. Yeah, we have one spot and 5 different people to interview. So our first interviewee is Debra Parker, and I believe she is here. And if we can elevate her into the meeting, that would be great. And we will ask her some questions. Debra, can you unmute yourself? Looks like
I unmuted myself, but now I don't see myself.
we see your name and we hear you, which is good. I don't know if, oh, there we go. Lovely.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. So we are interviewing today for the Public Art Committee. Thank you for your interest in this. And I have basically a standard set of questions that we will ask all interviewees, and we'll just get going with that if that's fine. if you want to just take a minute and introduce yourself a little bit, and then I'll launch into the questions.
Okay, my name is Debra Parker. I live in Missoula. I was reared here. I spent about 20 years in Kalispell practicing law up there. And while I was there, I was on the board of the Hockaday Art Museum. And I've always had an interest in this stuff. And I just thought this seemed like a great opportunity. Been on other boards, and this one seems like a great one.
Great, thanks. And if you can just speak up a little bit, I'm having a little bit of difficulty hearing you, but
Okay.
great. Okay, question number 1 is, why do you think public art is important? Please provide an example of how public art has made a positive impact on our community.
I think that when people see that they're in a community where the people who live here care about what their community looks like and wants to show the local artists' work, and I just think it makes a huge difference. I think it stirs people to a higher level of community participation. I mean, I just love walking downtown, and then I look down that little alley in between the old mercantile and that wall that is turned into a mural. I love things like that. It's like a little Easter egg hunt around town.
Thanks. Great. Number 2, what role should the Public Art Committee play in Missoula?
Well, I think it has a defined role as I read the ordinances. I don't know what you mean beyond that.
You know, whatever you want to say to it, really. I guess what is your perception of what the role is of this Public Art Committee?
My perception is it's the group that decides how to spend is it 1 or 1.5% of a construction budget that goes toward art, and organize that, I guess. I don't know exactly how that happens, but I have an idea.
Great, thank you. Number 3, in what ways has the Percent for Art program contributed to the regeneration and revitalization of communities across the country?
I don't know about the whole country. I think it's more important in some communities than others, but I'm so proud of the way Missoula loves its arts. I mean, we support the symphony. We have a vibrant art museum. There's the one on campus, and there's public art visible throughout downtown, not so much in other areas, and I'd like to see more things. I mean, the parks sometimes have a little art, but I think it could be expanded.
Okay, thank you. Number 4, how can Native American art be better integrated into our community?
Well, that's up to us. We're the ones who have to do that. I think that's what this committee probably could play a big role in. And I think it's important. I mean, I love those. I don't know if it's Native American art that's outside of the art museum now, but that stuff's beautiful. Those iron sculptures.
Mm-hmm. Great. Number 5, how can public art reflect the changing cultural demographic of Missoula and Montana?
Well, I think it does that naturally. I mean, whatever the artists are thinking and seeing and what they want to represent, I mean, that's, I don't do that. I'm not an artist, but I love this stuff. I don't quite know how to answer these questions. I guess.
I think they're just broad, open-ended questions, and it's yeah, just kind of seeing what people will bring to the committee. And by the way, I love your dog's tail keeps flapping in the background.
I think she wants to go outside.
No, it's the best part of these Zoom calls, of the animals. Okay, number 6, what experience do you bring to this position, and how does that experience enhance the committee?
Well, as I said, I have been on the board of an art museum, and we had exhibits, and we had to structure that kind of stuff. What I haven't done is be on the ground level and make arrangements with an artist to produce something that is going to be on display in the city. But I'm all in on that. I would love to follow through that sort of a process.
Great.
I've been on other city. Can I let her out? I've been on other city boards.
There we go.
And this just, I was looking for something to do. And when I saw this advertised, I thought, oh, I would love to do that. So here I am.
Well, we all appreciate people just like you taking your time to go through this process and have a passion and interest in Missoula. Okay, number 7, given that public art can be controversial, please give us an example of how you have worked to resolve conflict in a professional situation.
Well, that is my profession. I do resolve conflicts. I as an example, I can't really relate it to art, but, and it has taken me a long time to come around with this, but what I don't like to do is come out kind of guns blazing and start fights with people. My idea is to listen to people and respect what it is they have to say and see if we can't come together. Everyone isn't going to love every piece of art, and that's not necessary.
Thank you. Number 8, since this is your first time applying for the committee, what do you know about the public art process in Missoula?
I don't know a lot about the public art process in Missoula. I read the ordinances that control the committee, but that's about the extent of my information at this moment. I might have a steep learning curve.
And then the public last question, double check. Yes, last question. The Public Art Committee generally meets on the second Tuesday of every month for an hour and a half. Also, on an ad hoc basis, we sometimes form subcommittees to focus on specific projects. That said, do you have the time to commit to the Public Art Committee?
I do. Can I ask you a question?
That would be next. Yes.
Okay. Has the art already been designated for the new library, or is that an upcoming project? What's the status of that?
Heidi, would you be able to answer that? Because I do not know. Heidi West is one of our city councilors, and she sits on the Public Art Committee. So
okay. I don't know either. Yeah, that's the short answer.
And I wonder, there's the sculpture that's going inside the committee, that National Institute of Health sculpture, is that tied in with the art? I don't know.
No, and it might be, because it's a county building, there might be some constraints around the 1% that I'm not aware of. I know that, for example, the city park will have West Side Park will have a 1%. For art that comes out of it. Brian, do you know? You looked like you wanted to say something.
I don't. I think I was thinking the same thing that you were articulating, which is I don't think the DNA structure inside the library is completely on its own with the grant funding. And because of the county, I don't know how it intersects with the county library. So I just added nothing to the conversation.
Oh, okay. So okay, it's not subject to the city ordinance then if it's a county building.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
I was just curious.
That's clearly someone higher than our pay grade has these answers, but we.
Are there projects that you know about that are coming up?
Yeah, so the big one that I'm aware of is the West Side Park over on the west side, obviously. So that's a $2.1 million project, and it will have a 1% for arts, requirements.
Great. We are actually out of time, and we, I think, have the next person in the queue. So thank you so much for your time and for your application. And these Zoom meetings there's just no way around them. It's a very stilted dynamic, but this is what we're doing these days. And so
I
thank you.
understand, yeah.
Thank you for your patience. We have 5 applicants and 1 spot. So, and in fact, I was trying to get some information to see if there were any other opportunities. Oh, I have not heard an email back. I know that the mayor also has 1 spot that he needs to fill for the Public Art Committee. So it might be worth a phone call to the mayor's office. Yeah, we've got clearly lots of interest. So I'm not sure how this will all go today. I just wanted to put that information out there. Okay.
Appreciate that. Thank you for your time and keep my
Great.
fingers crossed.
Thanks. Well, I love the Hockaday Art Center. It's always been a highlight for me. So
It's magical up there, isn't it?
it's beautiful.
So I just click leave and I'm gone, right?
I believe so. There's usually like 2 levels of leave, and it'll get you out then. Okay.
I'm at second level.
Okay. All good. All righty. The next applicant that we have is Tiana Grease. Tiana, whoops, hang on.
Here we go.
Oh, she's been elevated and looks like she is
I'm elevated.
There you are. Excellent.
Hi. Let me just get a gallery view going here so I can see everybody. Okay, there. Great. Hi, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm Gwen Jones. I'm the chair of the A&F committee, and we're doing these interviews today for the Public Art Committee. And we have a set section, just a set list of questions that I'll ask you. But if you want to take a minute and just introduce yourself and tell me how to pronounce your name correctly also, that would be
Sure. Yeah, I get that a lot. My name is Tiana Grise. Hi, everybody. We just moved back here. I'm a native Missoulian, 4th or 5th generation, I think. And I've been gone for a long time, but we got the opportunity to move back in September when my husband was hired as the arts administrator for MCPS. So we're really excited to be home and close to our parents. I am a musician, an educator, and a former arts administrator. I was the executive director of the Fargo-Moorhead Area Youth Symphonies for about 4.5 years in Fargo, North Dakota. I'm sure you know where that is. It's a lot colder there today than it is here, which is exciting. And I'm super excited to meet with you guys today.
great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Question number 1. Why do you think public art is important? Please provide an example of how public art has made a positive impact on our community.
Well, I think all aspects of art are important, but public art, I think, is especially important because it is so much more accessible to everybody than other art forms, like, say, the symphony or gallery exhibits. You know, people walk by the X's downtown every day. And that's one of the things that I really actually love about Missoula is that they take art and public art really seriously. And it's everywhere.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
Number 2, and these questions do kind of flow into one another, so
Sure.
keep them in mind with them. But number 2, what role should the Public Art Committee play in Missoula?
Well, I mean, I think the role that they have been playing is very important. I think it's great that you guys are really active in bringing in new artists and creating new art for different spaces around Missoula. I think it's really important for you guys to be active in the arts community and out there taking care of everything and bringing things in for the people in the city, making sure actually that the things that are placed in the city are not just accessible, like I said, but are representative of the people who live here and work here.
Great, thank you. Number 3, in what ways has the Percent for Art program contributed to the regeneration and revitalization of communities across the country?
Wow, so this is something that I just recently learned about and I'm really excited about. I actually sent one of the, I think the latest update to the city ordinance to a friend of mine in Fargo, because they don't have Percent for Art program, and they really should. It's so exciting to see that, you know, cities are taking this really seriously to have public art for everyone, and that every time something's built, a certain percentage, you know, of that, well, you guys all know, of the budget goes towards public art. That's something I think that is really special, and it's really exciting to me that my hometown has jumped kind of on that bandwagon. I know it's been a while that you guys have been a part of it, and I'm not sure exactly how far it's gone across the country. I know there are other cities that are doing it, quite a few, but I really think it's such an exciting program that we should see it in more places.
Thank you. Number 4, how can Native American art be better integrated into our community?
Well, I think it's important for all of us to have a voice, and the people who have lived here the longest, I think it's really important for them to be able to be seen and heard. And I think, you know, I'm trying to think of pieces that I've seen recently that have been added. Maybe you guys can remind me. I think it is really, it's imperative that we give our Native people a voice, definitely in our arts community.
Thanks. And I know actually that was a big theme in the Missoula downtown plan that was recently completed. I think it's an ongoing conversation that we need.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's ongoing throughout the country. I was just on a panel at the Peabody Institute, and they were talking about integrating those voices in more. I think I'm glad that it's getting recognition.
Great, thanks. Number 5, how can public art reflect the changing cultural demographic of Missoula and Montana?
Well, I mean, that's really interesting because the demographic is changing a lot, and especially in the last, 20 years with the influx of all sorts of different people, and especially, the last few years, we've had a lot of new Americans come in our area. I think it's important to utilize their voices too, and make sure that when we decide on, what we put where, that the pool is representative of everyone who is here and coming here.
Great. And number 6, you kind of spoke to this at the beginning, but please expand on it. What experience do you bring to this position, and how does that experience enhance the committee?
Well, I'm an artist myself. I'm not just a musician. I consider myself a fiber artist. So you see, I've got my yarn behind me. I've got a lot of experience in the arts community, not just in Missoula, but in other areas. I've got a lot of experience dealing with a lot of different kinds of people. When I was in Fargo, we had over 200 students, and that is a community that has a lot of new Americans coming in. I really had the opportunity to meet a lot of different people from a lot of different cultures, and find out what they wanted from our program, especially, and what they were looking for. But that ability, I think, to really hear what people are asking, and advocate for them, I think is something that could be really helpful on that committee.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mhm.
Number 7, given that public art can be controversial, please give us an example of how you have worked to resolve conflict in a professional situation.
Oh, well, working with a lot of parents, orchestra parents, there's a lot of conflict that can happen. And there were numerous times where there were just events that needed to be diffused. We had a situation with one of our students who came to rehearsal and didn't stay at rehearsal. So there were police involved. And so with that, we had to revamp our whole attendance policy. But there was also, dealing with worried parents, worried music directors, talking to the other parents and reassuring them that we had things, under control. There've been I've had a lot of situations where I've had to diffuse things. And again, I think it's really important to be able to hear both sides, especially with something that can be as controversial as a piece of art.
Thank you. Number 8, this is your first time applying for this committee. What do you know about the public art process in Missoula?
Well, I mean, I know that Missoula has a great deal of public art, and that the Arts Committee has been around for a long time, and that you bring a lot of wonderful things to the city. Without the Public Arts Committee, we wouldn't have as much as we had, as much going on, I think, in Missoula as we do. The public art in Missoula is really what makes it, one of the things that makes it a really special place to live. Everywhere you go, art is integrated into different objects. We see bike racks and the hanging flower pots, and the sidewalks have art. It's incredible, the things that you guys do, bringing artists in, choosing from pools, and deciding what is going to go where. That was kind of rambly, wasn't it?
That's all right. And I tell every interviewee, it's these Zoom meetings, it's a very difficult dynamic. So, we just all kind of do the best we can, but no, it's all good.
I do have to say too, can I just also say that I was in Fargo for about 8 years, and every time I came home, I would walk around downtown and take pictures of the art that was down there that you guys have given us, and sent them off to my arts administrator friends and said, look what's going on here. This is a smaller town. Why don't we have this? So good job.
Thanks for that. We have one last question. The Public Art Committee generally meets on the second Tuesday of every month for an hour and a half. Also, on an ad hoc basis, we sometimes form subcommittees to focus on specific projects. That said, do you have the time to commit to the Public Art Committee?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
And did you have any questions for us at this point? I'm trying to see if our next interviewer is not yet in attendance. So did you have any questions for us?
No, I really don't, but thank you so much for taking the time and listening to my ramblings. It is really hard to do a Zoom interview and not be, across the table from someone. So
absolutely. And yes, we're just going to get through this pandemic and
yes,
back to in person at some point, and really appreciate it. I did want to let you know there are 5 applicants for 1 spot. And having read through all of the resumes, frankly,
it's going to be hard.
Well, really high caliber people, which is a lovely problem to have, but but hard also. So I'm not sure what will happen, but I just wanted to let you know of that scenario. And my understanding also is that I believe the mayor also has one spot on the Public Arts Committee to appoint. I am not sure what the status of that is, but that's all I know at this point. So welcome back to
Great.
Missoula, and we
Oh,
really
thanks.
appreciate you taking the time. As we
Thanks
said,
so much.
Missoula has the longest umbilical cord in the world, and we all cycle back after a while. That's the spouses may not know it at the time when they get into the marriage, but they're going to wind up here. So,
Well, it's unbelievable. I had no idea. I kept, I've always called Missoula kind of that black hole that does bring you back in. The umbilical cord is really a good picture of that. But yeah, it really does. We had no idea. It was a huge surprise, but a really welcome one. So thank you. Thanks, everybody.
all right, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Have a good afternoon.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Our next interview is, let me double check the schedule. Erica Hickey at 3:25. So we can take a brief break for a couple of minutes and then please come back because I need you. I need my quorum. Okay, people? So 3:25. Thanks.
It's nice to be needed.
You're all needed, very much so. All right.
Thank you for taking roll, Gwen. I don't know what happened with eScribe and Kirsten wasn't sure either.
Do you need me to tell you who's here? Or do you?
Do you mind telling me? That would be helpful.
I'm just going to tell you the ones who are present.
Sure.
You need it alphabetical order or not necessarily?
Any way you give them to me is great.
I'll just go across the board then. So the people present are Merritt,
Okay.
Jones,
Okay.
Becerra, West,
Okay.
Vasika, Von Lossberg, and Cheryl.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gwen.
Thanks. And we have a quorum.
Excellent. And were the minutes approved? We were trying to figure out as presented last time.
Yep, they were approved as presented.
Excellent. Thank you. It really does take a village to do these meetings, doesn't it?
No. And yep. Okay, and it looks like Ms. Hickey is here if people want to turn their cameras on.
Would you like me to elevate her to participant
Yes.
panelist?
Yes, thank you. That would be great.
Yes.
And I think Brian is the only one, but he will come back in a minute, I'm sure. And it looks like we have Ms. Hickey we can see you, and are you unmuted?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful. Excellent. Okay, thank you so much. My name is Gwen Jones. I'm the chair of the Administration and Finance Committee, and we are interviewing applicants for the Public Art Committee today. So thank you for your application. And we just have a set list of interview questions we ask everyone. But before we start that, Ms. Hickey, if you want to just take a minute and introduce yourself, and then we'll get going.
Okay. My name's Erica Hickey. I have a small business in Missoula. Actually, I live in East Missoula, so I live outside of city limits. But I had a small business in town for 10 years. I had a little toy store on Higgins called Walking Stick Toys. I have an interest in a lot of public art, including out here where I live. I'm in my house right now, so I'm pointing at the mountainside, which has a water tower on it that I dream about having turned into something a lot more magical than it is right now. Yeah, I have a couple kids, and yeah, I don't know. I
Great.
guess that's kind of me.
Perfect. Thank you. That's great. We really appreciate that. So I'm just going to go through the questions here, and yes, that's how it goes. Number one, why do you think public art is important? Please provide an example of how public art has made a positive impact on our community.
Okay, I feel like art is a connector, a uniter, and currently how the ways of the world are, and even how we've all kind of been at home more often, or not able to go out into public spaces as freely. I think that it is even more important than it ever has been. All forms of art. And I think that it can connect people who normally wouldn't be very connected. And it just brings joy, I think, to people's worlds and lives. And it's a great form of expression. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Okay. Number two, what role should the Public Art Committee play in Missoula?
Honestly, I'm not super familiar with the Public Art Committee. I recently was connected to someone regarding the water tower that I kind of am like dreaming about painting. And so I inquired about the boxes that are next to stoplights, and understand that you guys played a role in, the Public Art Committee played a role in bringing those into fruition. So yeah, I think I don't totally understand all the ins and outs of what the Public Art Committee does, but yeah, I guess kind of all the things that I mentioned before, right? Like just bringing art into the community, making it one of the things in the forefront.
Great, thank you. Number three, in what ways has the Percent for Art program contributed to the regeneration and revitalization of communities across the country?
Sorry, I can't answer that question.
It's like the SAT. It's all right. And basically it's a funding mechanism, and I think communities choose to use this funding mechanism in their internal budgets to create money for art, but I don't know, anything to add to that? Or
So communities use this. It's like, where does the funding come from?
I think in terms of development within the community,
Okay,
small percent is
sure.
allocated to art.
I guess I would say that making sure that all of the different, like BIPOC communities, and I love the new mural that is on that ramp right there.
Okay.
I do feel like that's something that should be more focused on, I guess, than it ever has been before. I think it is, though, being more talked about, and but I think that's part of art, right? Is the whole uniting part. So I guess funding that's available should be dispersed based on, actually, just so that all of our races are covered, and all of our minorities, and all of our different groups of people have a fair chance, I guess.
Okay, and that's leading into question 4. I think you were partially answering it, which is how can Native American art be better integrated into our community? If you had anything to add.
Yeah, I feel like I've done some recent work with Common Good Missoula, and I think that's tricky, just reaching those different people that might be more isolated than us. But if there are ways that we can figure out how to create outreach where we can make sure that they're able to express themselves as easily as a white person, I think that that's really important, key, especially since this is their land, not ours. So.
Thank you. Number 5, how can public art reflect the changing cultural demographic of Missoula and Montana?
The changing cultural demographic.
Mm-hmm.
What is it changing to? I guess. What do you mean?
Well, I didn't write these questions, so I'm not sure exactly what
Okay.
but I would say that our community continues to change and grow and stretch in new directions. So
I guess just nothing needs to be permanent, right? So maybe being sensitive to the times. So maybe there is art somewhere that isn't serving the different cultural communities anymore, and that might need to change from time to time. So just being aware of, being sensitive, I guess, to the way things shift and altering art based on that.
great, thank you.
Yeah.
Number 6, what experience do you bring to this position, and how does that experience enhance the committee?
I guess I've taught some art classes. A lot of stuff with kids has kind of been my focus over the years. I wouldn't call myself an artist really, but I do feel like some of my strengths are connecting with people, just talking and listening to the community, and I think that I can be really open-minded about things, and yeah, I don't have a lot. I mean, I have like some finance experience, and I ran a business for years. I mean, I have a tiny business that I run out of my house right now too. So yeah, I guess just mostly connections and some teaching experience and just listening, listening to people. So yeah.
Great. Well, and that leads into our next question, number 7. Given that public art can be controversial, please give us an example of how you have worked to resolve conflict in a professional situation.
How I have worked to resolve conflict.
Yes.
Let's see. I have to think of a situation, I guess. I am really having a hard time right now. Sorry.
Actually, we could do the next question, and then if you think of something, come back to it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try and.
That's fine. Number 8, if this is your first time applying for the committee, what do you know about the public art process in Missoula?
This is my first time applying for the committee. I don't know a ton besides what I've talked to people who have sat on the committee before. Just kind of that it's a process to push things through, as it is with anything, I feel like, in communities or so I guess I don't have a ton of knowledge there either. I feel like I'm maybe not super qualified for this.
Right. Oh, that's okay. Last question. The Public Art Committee generally meets on the second Tuesday of every month for an hour and a half. Also, on an ad hoc basis, we sometimes form subcommittees to focus on specific projects. That said, do you have the time to commit to the Public Art Committee?
I do.
Okay, great. And yeah, if you think of anything,
some conflict,
an example of how you have worked to resolve conflict in a professional situation.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm really not coming up with anything. I feel like I mean, I guess just kind of in general, like, feel like if there is conflict, then it's just really important to listen to both or all, if there are more than 2 parties, sides of everything, and take it all into consideration. And if it's not something that I'm knowledgeable about, then you have to do research and make sure that you're being sensitive to all of the people involved.
Great.
Yeah, I just feel like, especially in this day and age, we just really have to be good listeners and not try and bring our opinions in immediately,
Okay.
which is tricky sometimes.
Yeah. Did you have any questions for us? We always ask that at the end.
I mean, I guess based on like how much I don't know about the Public Art Committee, maybe you could fill me in like a tiny bit on like one project. Is that possible?
So
besides,
Heidi West is our city councilor who sits on the Public Art Committee. And Heidi, do you want to talk about what's going on right now?
Oh man, so obviously there are the traffic boxes. I think those are almost a finished project in Missoula, as in there aren't very many left to do. And I think some other projects that are in the works are a Native American mural that is a part of the downtown like park redoing along the river corridor. There's been discussions of like a welcome sign into Missoula, and then the Public Art Committee often helps other kind of entities do art calls. So for example, there was one recently to put a mural on the transfer center on behalf of Mountain Line. So there are just constant kind of little projects and pet projects in the works that different committee members shepherd, and I'm not covering all of them. There's a few other ones in various stages of brainstorming. Some of them are just really on that kind of brainstorming level. So
Okay. Cool.
Thanks, Heidi. You're my go-to for this. So we are, so we're done with this interview. We've got 2 more, and I just have to tell
Okay.
you, we have 5 people applying for 1 position, and frankly, everybody is really high caliber, which is a great problem to have.
That's awesome.
Makes it hard. My understanding, so we are halfway through our process. I'm not sure what the ultimate result is, but I just am telling everyone also, my understanding is that there is also an opening that the mayor appoints. I'm not sure what the status of that. I just wanted to let people know that is potentially another option also. So thank you very much for
Okay.
coming today. I appreciate it. And we were always commenting about how these Zoom interviews are just hard. It's a hard dynamic, but we really appreciate you taking the time and coming in and doing it. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
All righty. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, and I see that Greg Twig, our next interviewee, is here. So I think we should just head straight into the interview if everyone stays on. So
I will go ahead and promote him.
yes. There he is. Great. Excellent. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Quigg. Can you hear us?
Yeah, apparently I was just promoted. I didn't know that was gonna be part of my operation today.
We give lots of promotions and elevations here.
Good.
Thank you for coming today. We are interviewing people for the Public Art Committee, and we greatly appreciate your application.
Thanks for having me.
And so my name is Gwen Jones. I'm the chair of the Administration and Finance Committee, and the Public Art Committee comes underneath that umbrella. So that's why we're doing it in this committee. We have a set list of questions that we ask every applicant. But before we get into that, I just wanted to give you a minute if you just want to briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am a Missoula resident since '92, where I moved here from Northern Michigan to attend the university. I enrolled in the School of Art degree and focused my work on pretty much anything I get my hands on, painting, sculpture, ceramics, printmaking, and photography. And found myself also trying to balance my interest in digital art at the time, which was really not anything that was happening at the college level or in any of our classes, and started to bring in some Photoshop paintings to my painting class, and had some pushback from fellow students and support from my teacher, and was really encouraged to move down that path more. At the time, our university was just starting a graduate program in media arts, and I took a couple of those classes and discovered animation and motion design. And once I got my degree, undergraduate degree, I just jumped right back into school and went to through the master's program in media arts, where my art developed as a motion graphic artist and a digital artist and an animator and a filmmaker and sound designer, all the things that sort of are encompassed in that world. And that has led me to where I am today, where I took a break from well, after I got my degree, I worked at an ad agency for about 2 years before the school asked me to come back and teach as an adjunct. So I taught for a couple of years as an adjunct and finally got brought in as full-time faculty. So now I am on my 18th year at the university as a full professor in media arts where I am teaching digital art in all aspects, still image design and motion graphics and animation. I'm involved in some immersive emerging technologies, VR and gaming and stuff like that as well. So I'm also an artist on the outside of school. Do some freelance work and play with, animating and logos and design work and stuff like that. I'm a father of 3 dogs. What else? That's about, I'll leave it there.
That's great. No, thank you. It just really helps having kind of some background. As we say in every single one of these interviews, these Zoom meetings are very hard dynamics, so
Sure.
better that we can kind of connect. It just helps. Thank you so
Well,
much.
the Zoom is no stranger in my world right now. But
Yeah.
I haven't had an interview in a very long time, so we'll see how smooth this goes.
All good, all good. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the questions. And number 1 is, why do you think public art is important? Please provide an example of how public art has made a positive impact on our community.
Well, public art is important because it can get into the eyes or hands of the public who might not take the time to discover or look at art through their own adventures, like go to a gallery or go to a showing or go to theater or whatnot. It's something that has full exposure to a broad audience. And I think that art is something that is a helpful reminder to anybody, whether you're an artist or not, just about how special people in our world are who can make things. And then an example of how public art has helped our community? Is that what you had asked?
Yeah, please provide an example of how public art has made a positive impact on our community.
Oh, it's not my most favorite public piece of art here, but it's a really fantastic one. It's the piece that's on the Orange Street underpass. And I believe it was done by high school kids. So it's like a mural work as you go underneath what would be the kettle house, right? Or the train tracks. It's taking something that you'd never look at normally, concrete that was probably crumbling and not very attractive. And I think that every time I go under the train tracks now, and it just brings a smile to my face, and I can only imagine that would be something that happens with anybody else, either if they're just coming to town for the first time. It's kind of a nice welcome into our community. If you're just coming off the interstate in the town, you're hit with something colorful and vibrant right away. That's awesome.
Great, thanks. I have to look next time I drive there. I know I've seen it many times, but
Is that not something that was done through?
I have looked at it, but I got to go look again. All good. Okay, number 2, what role should the Public Art Committee play in Missoula?
Well, the role that you're already playing seems to be proper, but to continue to find and deliver artists who can help make our community more beautiful, lovely, vibrant, and celebrate who we are. Does that answer that question?
I think it's good. Number 3. Yes, sorry. Number 3, in what ways has the Percent for Art program contributed to the regeneration and revitalization of communities across the country?
Well, is that the initiative that tries to make sure that 1 or 1.5% of construction budget goes to some work of art for?
Correct. It's a funding mechanism tied to development too. put
And
some.
that's something that is nationwide. That's not just unique to us here.
I believe, my understanding is different communities adopt in on it.
Okay.
Some have, some haven't.
I was unaware of it until I researched what you guys are up to here. So I can only imagine its impact nationwide. My first thought just went to a creative exposure to visitors, not necessarily just our community and the folks who live here, but outsiders, and maybe like helping us be on the map of a creative hub. Otherwise, I don't really have any other examples.
Okay, great. No, thank you. Number 4, how can Native American art be better integrated into our community?
Just more of it. How can it be better integrated? I just think we need to have more exposure. I love the piece. I drive by it every time I go to work at the university, or back when I used to go to work at the university. That's right outside of the athletics deal. That guy's name is slipping me right now.
Adam Center?
Jay Labor did the warrior on the horse metal sculpture, where there's all different things you see in there that you recognize, but obviously the piece itself is the warrior on the horse, and it's got so much energy and such a special reminder about how lucky we are to be on these grounds and sharing them together. I would love to see more work that is that reminder about the important union that we have with the Native community, and sharing this land.
Thank you. And kind of continuing in that vein, the next question is, how can public art reflect the changing cultural demographic of Missoula and Montana?
We're constantly seeing art evolve and change, and we're having different ways in which we're expressing ourselves, delivering the images or the movements or the sounds, and I think that ways to embrace new art forms is something that will probably end up being an ongoing discussion, just because of the way that our artists are creating in different ways. And so I would assume that some of the dialogue that you guys probably already have is how to interface with these new technologies and these new deliveries, and how that can be something that manifests itself to a building or to a park or an alleyway, or so there are some lots of questions about that. But I would assume that is, I don't even know if that's getting into the answer for your question, but we have to be able to adapt and celebrate all art forms, and a lot of those are going to be non-traditional.
Thank you. Number 7, given that public art can be controversial, please give us an example of how you have worked to resolve conflict in a professional situation.
Oh my God, I deal with conflict all the time as an instructor, as a professor in art, right? Art can sometimes just be lovely and easy, and other times it can be very visceral, intense, and shocking. I can definitely say that there have been some times in class where there has been some student work shown during critique time that, I've had students walk out because they were offended in some way or another. And I have to, in those cases, I have to let them walk out. I also have to embrace that opportunity for that other student to show their work and continue with it, right? And then dialogue is always really important after those exchanges. If the student who left didn't come back, we will have a discussion or a forum in class about feelings. Did anyone else feel this? Is there, I talk to the student who created the work that was offensive, and I say, okay, well, that just happened. Why do you think, are you still interested in working this way or on these pieces? And, usually the conversation ends up being very positive. And, oh man, other conflicts, just students freaking out about grades or, things like that is usually just a time to make sure that I listen and stay cool and collected. And often I will pull in a faculty member to help mediate or offer the discussion up into a greater audience if need be. But yeah, I mean, I deal with a lot of conflict, but that doesn't have anything to do with public art at this point. But you say public art can be offensive sometimes, and yeah, art can be offensive in any form.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you
Sure.
for that. Since this is your first time applying for the committee, what do you know about the public art process in Missoula?
I don't know a lot about it. I am interested in this. What I understand is that opportunities are broadcast some way, either through your website or through the media. And you have artists submit proposals. I remember the proposal for the parking garage public artwork, and I had some friends who actually went through that process of submitting a proposal for those pieces, and you ended up having, what is it, the wave or the really fun pipey thing that is outside the parking garage. Or I've had students also submit work for the crosswalk box art stuff. Amber Bushnell did a couple of those. And that you guys have basically a committee assesses and evaluates these proposals and kind of makes the call on those things. And that's really, it seems like a curious process for me, how you end up coming to agreement on some things. But that's all I know.
Thanks.
I know that most of the work is not commissioned. Is that correct? Or do artists get a commission? I think that the crosswalk boxes is just a thing where they want to do it, and maybe they get some money for the materials for it or something, but I don't know.
Yeah, I believe the electrical boxes, that's a kind of a set rate. It tends to go through the neighborhood council, and then I think the Public Art Commission weighs in on it also. But then there are bigger projects around town that are, I'm not sure the specific, I think proposals are submitted, and I'm not sure the exact process they go through.
So, but then you do have a budget for
Yeah,
specific projects and whatnot. Okay.
yeah, exactly. We're just about out of time, but we have
Okay,
one more
sorry, talked too
question.
much.
No, all good. Number 9, the Public Art Committee generally meets on the second Tuesday of every month for an hour and a half. Also, on an ad hoc basis, we sometimes form subcommittees to focus on specific projects. That said, do you have the time to commit to the Public Art Committee?
I sure do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have applied.
Great, thank you. So I'm telling everyone, we have one spot and we have 5 applicants, and frankly, everybody is a really high caliber. So it's just one of those scenarios where it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, lucky you guys.
Right. So not sure how this all ends up, but the other piece of information I'm giving to everyone also is my understanding the mayor also has an appointment slot on the Public Art Committee that he's filling. I am not sure what the status of that is, if that has closed or not, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay.
But we really appreciate your interest, and it's lovely interviewing everyone. Frankly, people really love Missoula, so I think that comes out in these interviews. So thank you.
Better.
That's right. Go Missoula. Thank you so much. And I see that our next interviewee is actually queued up. So thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Twig. We really
Take care. Good luck. Be in touch.
All righty. Bye-bye. Okay, and if we could elevate Mr. James Walter. And our last interview, guys, hang in there. We're doing it. Whew. This is, we need to revisit the subcommittee discussion on interviewing applicants, but all good. Oh, there we go. Mr. Walter, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Great. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Gwen Jones. I'm the chair of the Administration and Finance Committee for City Council, and the Public Art Committee comes underneath that. So we are doing interviews for an open spot on the Public Art Committee. So thank you for your application. And I have a set list of questions that I'll go through with you, but if you want to take a minute and just briefly introduce yourself, go ahead.
I would like to thank you. I want to thank the Administration and Finance Committee for taking the time to consider my application. I've been volunteering with the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Board, and I am also currently volunteering with the Lewis and Clark leadership team in my neighborhood. It's been an honor and privilege to connect with everybody in the city. I've really enjoyed both experiences. Outside of that, I've volunteered my professional services to support the artistic endeavors of some of my friends. A couple of different events have been funded in part through the Montana Arts Council. And professionally, I am an accomplished craftsperson and skilled tradesman with over 15 years of metal fabrication experience. I worked in industrial, construction, and ornamental ironworking trades. And I currently operate a custom metal fabrication and household good manufacturing company here in Missoula, where I make products for people's homes.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And we'll just launch into our questions here. Number 1, why do you think public art is important? And please provide an example of how public art has made a positive impact on our community.
I believe public art can serve people as they are just living in their environment on a day-to-day basis, and that it can enrich people's lives from the moment that they step out of their house to the last thing they do at the end of the day. And Missoula has a lot of features already that make that an excellent experience, and would love to see it improve and grow and get bigger.
Thank you. Number 2, what role should the Public Art Committee play in Missoula?
I believe the Public Art Committee should inform not only offices within the city, but the general public as well, as to how public art can be accessible to everyone in this community. And I believe that the connection between agencies and also the public is what can help facilitate and fuel the addition of more of those projects.
Great, thanks. Number 3, in what ways has the Percent for Art program contributed to the regeneration and revitalization of communities across the country?
believe that the percent for art is an excellent feature that's built in nationally for facilitating the efforts being made in local levels to get bigger sponsored projects happening. And since it is matched to the amount of money that's being spent in any given public project, you really can have high impact installations being made that can contribute greatly in ways that local governments could not necessarily do on their own.
Thanks. Number 4, how can Native American art be better integrated into our community?
Believe that we do inherit the pride of who we are in the place where we live and the way that each person associates with that, and that stepping into the past, you can visit the experiences of others and also enjoy or understand so much more. So much education can be given by being able to perceive other people's experiences and other people's histories.
Thank you. Okay, and this next question kind of follows along in the same vein. Number 5, how can public art reflect the changing cultural demographic of Missoula and Montana?
I believe public art can elevate expression that can generally be unheard or is maybe subjugated to a particular component in our society, and by being able to create representation in various parts of the city that represent many different like and unlike opinions and views, we can share the general experience across the entire city, and I view that as being a benefit.
Thank you. Number 6, what experience do you bring to this position, and how does that experience enhance the committee?
I believe my experience in organizing and participating in volunteer activities, which have led to changes in traffic safety management through my service with Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Board, would highlight my willingness to contribute time, energy, and the type of organizing that is so important for people to step up and provide and come together to support these types of programs.
Thanks. Okay, the next question, you kind of touched upon it a little bit ago in the prior question, but given that number 7, given that public art can be controversial, please give us an example of how you have worked to resolve conflict in a professional situation.
So if it's possible, I would like to screen share.
Sure.
I raise my hand. I believe I can be promoted to panelist.
Lisa, can you promote him so that he can screen share?
All right, he is a panelist, so he should.
Okay.
Can you try to share your screen,
Can you see?
Mr. Walker?
Yes, let's see.
There we
Can
go.
you see?
Yep. Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, so what you're looking at right now, let's see, and if I can, okay. So what you're looking at right now is the traffic calming circles that are currently being employed. They were deployed this past year on a trial experimentation basis. And I personally designed the boxes, and it was through my participation in just volunteering and local activism roles that I was given the opportunity to work with the engineering department, transportation planning department and deploy these planning boxes that have been used for traffic in the new traffic management program that's being tested out. And so as you can see in the next slide, we are at the bike ped board, and also with the new Greenway program, we are encouraging community members to participate in getting involved with the creation of placemaking associated at these new sites. And this is a painting that I made in the center of the road, and it should be a relatively non-offensive and enjoyable piece of art. I don't really consider myself to be an artist, but it's something that I put out there to help initiate and kick off community participation in this Greenway program. That is all I have to provide in regards to that question.
Okay, that is the first time we've ever had a visual presentation in any interview I've done on council. So groundbreaking. Thank you. Okay, hang on. Let me get back to my questions. Oh dear, I've lost my, hang on a second. Okay, thank you. 2 more questions. If this is your first time applying for the committee, what do you know about the public art process in Missoula?
I have applied for the mayoral seated position of the Public Art Committee, and I have YouTube watched some of the Public Art Committee meetings. And to the best of my knowledge, I believe that the Public Art Committee is, really handling a lot of evolving public art experiences that the city seems to be going through with its recent growth. With so many new people moving to the city, there seems to be renewed and vigorous appetite for more public art. Certainly, as this pandemic has stricken most people to just outdoor public places, it's really elevated the urgent need for the greatest possible value to be made in some of these public places that are available where public art may be presented. So I feel like the Public Art Committee has a long-standing history of doing really good things for the community in Missoula, but I feel like it's kind of reached an evolution stage and would be honored to serve with the members of the board of the committee to work and make it better.
Thank you. Last question. The Public Art Committee generally meets on the 2nd Tuesday of every month for an hour and a half. Also, on an ad hoc basis, we sometimes form subcommittees to focus on specific projects. That said, do you have the time to commit to the Public Art Committee?
I do.
Great. And did you have any, we've got a couple minutes still, did you have any questions for us that you wanted to ask or anything?
I would like to know if there's anything from the experience dealing with the Public Art Committee that stands out to this Administration and Finance Committee. If there's any favorable or maybe unfavorable experience that anyone's had, would love to just get a kind of opinion of the Finance Committee and Administration Committee here.
I would just say in general, I think my impression is that Missoula is a community that values art. So we choose to engage and we create public art and put it out there, which in turn creates different conversations that go in all sorts of different directions. positive, negative, you name it. So I think that's a good result, and it's not boring, you know, it's just not boring living in Missoula. I'll put it that way. But we choose to kind of dive in and have the experience. I think different cultures and different communities, they go in different directions. They may not engage in public art nearly as much. So that's kind of my impression. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything. Oh, Brian, I see you raising your hand.
Sure. Not a ton of interaction, but what I have had with the chair of the committee has been really positive. Courtney, I believe. I've just found her to be really responsive and passionate about what the committee does. And I know, you know, there was an instance, I can't remember how many months ago it was, but it had to do with the relatively new artwork near where the freeway on-ramp is in the lower Rattlesnake. And as you can imagine, I mean, it's a beautiful piece of artwork, and but with the location was getting some, you know, sort of grime and dirt, if you will, from, you know, traffic. And I had, actually, it was a county commissioner reached out about it, and I remember touching base with Courtney. I just really appreciate her responsiveness.
So, and to add to that, I believe that Courtney has resigned, and this is a spot to be replaced for Courtney. But there's very good people on the Public Art Committee, other people that I know of, and it's a good thing in Missoula. Mr. Twig, I'm telling everyone who interviews with us today that we have five applicants and 1 spot. So, and the applicants that we've interviewed today, frankly, have all been really high caliber. So this is a good problem to have, but lots of people vying for 1 spot. And it sounds like you are already aware of the spot that the mayor appoints. That's a separate process, but I'm not sure what the status is exactly of that, but I'm glad it's on your radar. Just, these are all the different ways to approach getting on that committee. So I really appreciate your time, and we'll let you know the ultimate result here. Okay. Thank you so much for attending today.
Thank you, everyone else. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Okay, everyone, we have 1 spot to fill. And Mr. Von Lossberg.
A question, and maybe it's best directed to Heidi. So I'm embarrassed to say I didn't realize that that this was the spot that Courtney held. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know I had interacted with Courtney, not often, but here and there in her capacity as chair for a while. Maybe Heidi, could you refresh us on, is there already a new chair, and if you have any assessment of sort of the needs of that committee?
Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit. So there are 2 open seats right now. One is the council appointment, and one will be a mayoral appointment. We do not currently have anyone who really is enthusiastic about taking on the role of chair. And so it would be, I think it is our committee's hope that one of these new folks would actually be willing to serve as chair. There's 2 people on the art that serve on the art committee, myself and the representative from Arts Missoula that can't be chairs. Paisley is a staff support, and so the rest of the folks are all very busy and active community members. And yeah, so the short answer is yes, we are trying to actually find a new chair.
Okay, thanks. Did that answer your question, Brian? All righty. And I just want to have a clarification before we take any motions. As I've said, we have 5 really strong applicants, so I'm not quite sure how this will all shake out. We're going to figure it out. But can we just clarify, if a motion is made for one applicant, we discuss that, vote it up or down. If it votes down, then we take a second motion for another applicant and we keep going until we've got a majority. Is that correct, Mr. Von Lossberg?
I think you have discretion on how you would like to do that. That works. What I think I would suggest is to make sure that everyone who wants to make a nomination has made a nomination, so that then if people are voting yes or no on one, they've taken that into account, and people need to be cognizant of that, just so that we get sort of all the nominations that might be out there, if that makes some sense.
Okay, actually, I appreciate that. And I think that is better. And I think when we revise our rules for city council, we need to clarify this process, because we tend to have this conversation about every 3 or 4 months. So put a pin in it. Okay, given that, I'm going to go down in the order that I've got on my screen here. Ms. Merritt.
Thank you. I think given what Heidi just shared, that they're looking for someone who could step in or who would be willing to take on the chair position, I'd like to nominate Mr. Walter, that we just heard from, with his previous experience with other city boards, that he might be in the best position to take over on that. And with his obvious experience of working with some other installations around town, he seems to be a good candidate to me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have that motion is in order. Mr. Walter has been nominated. I'm just going to go through the rest of the hands so we get all comments and any other nominations out there. Okay, Mr. Von Lossberg was next.
Thanks. I was actually going to nominate Mr. Walter as well. Do you want me to, when we're done with nominations, could we have another go around on discussion, and I'll hold off on some comments until then?
Absolutely. Let's do that. All right. Ms. Becerra.
A couple of things. One, I wanted to clarify that living in East Missoula is not an issue.
That is correct. The Public Art Committee, you can live anywhere within the county, is my understanding. So yes, it's a very big umbrella. And I believe Ms. Hickey lives in East Missoula. And so yes, that is acceptable.
Okay, and I would like to nominate Tiana Grisey.
Okay. Thank you for that. How about I'm going to go through all of these, and then we'll cycle back through again if people want to speak to their nominations. All right, Ms. Vasika.
I was actually going to nominate Mr. Walter as well, and I'll hold off on comment until later.
Okay, Ms. West.
I was going to nominate Erica Hickey. And I'll speak to it when we go around again.
Okay, Ms. Cheryl.
I don't want to try to complicate this anymore. So I was going to nominate Twig. I'm sorry that I'm doing that. I liked the fact, well, I'll speak to it. I guess I am complicating it. I'll speak to it after.
Okay. I love how this item on city council is going to take most of my brain power compared to other things, but we're going to do this. I believe on one of these nominations, we're going to have to get 4 out of 7. So we'll figure it out. Okay, let's speak to those nominations now. If you want to raise your hand, I'll call on you and we'll go ahead. Ms. Vasika.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Just a thought. You might want to just take those in order so that anyone speaking to one particular one, we do those, the next one, etc., so we don't mix them. I think it might help.
I think that's very helpful. Thanks. Okay, so actually I wrote down the nominations in the order in which they came in. The first one is Mr. Walter. Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak to Mr. Walter. Ms. Vasika.
Thanks. Ms. Merritt made a very good point that he does have the background to become chair of this, if he so chooses. One of the reasons why I wanted to nominate him is because he has a very interesting background with metal fabrication, and his interview was also the most impressive to me.
Thank you. Mr. Von Lossberg.
Yeah, I agree. Also, and I mean this seriously, anyone that devotes time to watching some of the meetings on YouTube it's a pretty impressive thing. I will say that a big part of this for me is given Heidi's input, that potential chair role, and I think he could do great. I also think another candidate stands out for me on that front, but I'll leave that for later.
Okay, Ms. Merritt.
Yeah, I guess I already kind of spoke to him, but yeah, I think that Mr. Walter would make a great candidate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have Tiana Grise. Comments on her nomination. Ms. Becerra.
I was pretty impressed with her passion for public art. I think she brings knowledge from outside. I think she has the experience to be the chair potentially, but certainly to contribute some important aspects of collaboration to the committee. So I think she'd be a great fit.
Thank you. Mr. Von Lossberg.
Yeah, she was the other one that stood out to me as could probably hit the ground running in terms of chairing the committee. So just to be transparent, I'm kind of weighing those two that I've spoken about in regard to that.
Great, thank you. Anyone else to comment on Tiana Grise? Okay, next in line was Erica Hickey. Anyone to comment on that nomination? West.
Yeah, I'll just briefly speak to that. So Erica was actually my first boss when I moved to Missoula, and I worked for her at the Walking Stick Toys, and she just has an incredible amount of passion and creativity and problem solving ability, and is also a very active organizer, and it just is really great at working with people and getting things accomplished. She's probably the only workplace I ever that I still know of that you could bring your child to work, and she just has a a great ability to solve problems and also provide an environment where people can really reach their highest potential. So I think that's something that could be very useful.
Thank you, Mr. Von Lossberg.
My quest to be the most annoying council person of the day. I wanted just to acknowledge that I thought Ms. Hickey had some remarkably resonant answers to some questions around connecting with people and underrepresented and perhaps undervalued portions of the community. And I know I think she likely felt bad, which she shouldn't have, about like the conflict question, for instance. But I thought some of her answers at the beginning were just really, really thoughtful, and I would have no problem with her serving on this committee. She'd be great.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else on Ms. Hickey? Now we're going to Mr. Twig. Ms. Cheryl.
Sorry, I'm still on Hickey. I was trying to raise, I thought I had my hand raised, but maybe not. I'll be the second most annoying council person late in the day, I guess. But I actually, Hickey was someone that I thought a lot about as well. I think Zoom's a really weird format to get to know people, as I think Gwen pointed out. And I liked her answers. I thought it was funny that I think she thought she didn't do well, but I thought she had a very good interview. I also do like, I think that the points Heidi makes are really good about someone that she has worked for that has those qualities. And I think as part of a team and someone that can be collaborative, that's a pretty good point to be made.
Thank you. Anyone else on Erica Hickey? Okay, last nomination is for Mr. Twig. Who would like to speak to that?
Sorry. I'm raising my hand.
Yeah.
I went backwards because I was the only one. Sorry, I just started talking. Yeah, the reason I nominated him, I just want to have a discussion on that. And I feel like there's a lot, I mean, there's not anyone here that I would feel bad about appointing. I would feel good about appointing any of them, to be quite honest. But I did like that, you know, he has been at the university. He's a professor. He seems to know a lot about the art around town. I think that I liked that he was in media arts, because I think that's a different direction. But I'll be honest, I don't really know the background as far as artists that's on the current board. I was trying to look that up a little bit as well and had a hard time finding it. But I liked those qualities in him, and I thought he had a really thoughtful, well-spoken interview. So, and I think he's someone that could jump in and be a chair pretty quickly, would be my guess.
Ms. Basika.
Thanks. Mr. Twig was also on my mind with this. Apparently I'm all about the conflict resolution, because I really like the way that he discussed having the students when they're displaying their works of art, and how he bridged the gap between the students that, you know, felt differently about all that art, and how he was able to have those conversations with that. And I do feel like he would be a good person to jump in as chair. So if Mr. Walter does not make it on the rounds of votes, then I will be backing Mr. Twig for my secondary person.
Okay, any other comments? I have not commented on anyone yet, but frankly, I think anyone we interview today would be great. And I know we can only take one, so I hope we see some of these people coming through from our interviews in the future, and we get them on the committee at some point, and that message hopefully gets to them. I think Mr. Walter would be great, and frankly, I think he is the kind of person who shows up and does the work and owns it and buys in, and has proven that. And that right there is a huge factor to me, because there's a lot of heavy lifting to do on these volunteer positions. And I think Ms. Grisey also would bring some great administrative chops to this, and she would be a great chair. I think Twig would also, and Erica Hickey was delightful and would bring lovely components to this. So I guess we just have to vote. All right. Last question is, Brian, in terms of process, if we vote on the first nomination, and that is a majority, 4 out of 7, we're done? Or should we go through all of them? What if there's a 5 out of 7? You see what I'm saying? I guess everybody can only vote once, though. Let's figure this out before we start.
Yeah. I should know the answer to this, and I honestly, I can't recall a situation. So
I don't know either. I feel like we could only get one vote. And if we
if
not
we
have a majority, then we're going to go through the list again until we get a majority, but you only get a one vote each time. Does that sound good?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
As committee chair, you've got discretion, and barring this is the perfect place to say barring objection. So if anyone has an objection, put it on the record. But I think that sounds like we will get to a fair outcome.
Okay. Barring objection, for each round of voting, we will go through each nominee, and you get 1 vote per round. If we do not have a majority of 4 or more, or whoever has the most above a majority or more, they get the nomination. If we do not have that, we will go through the process again. Okay, here we go. Are we ready? Well, actually, is there any public comment to take? Seeing no one in attendance to give public comment, we will, and Lisa, I will just do this vote. All right.
That would be wonderful.
I think it's going to be too hard to do otherwise. All right. First, for Mr. Walter. All those in favor, just raise your hand and I will note so on the screen. For Mr. Walter, we have Merritt, Becerra, Vasika, and Jones. Okay, next we have Grisey. All those in favor of Grisey? I'm not seeing any raised. Wait, Becerra, your hand is still up. What are you doing? There we go. Okay. Don't confuse me. All right, so for Grise, are there any raised hands? I'm not seeing any. Yes, Merta? Merta, you already voted for Walter, didn't you?
I guess I'm not understanding the process.
Okay, but I'm going to explain it one time. For each round of voting, when we go through all 4 nominations, you get 1 vote. If we don't.
Okay, so take my vote out of
Okay, all right.
Walter and put it on Grise, please.
Okay, got it. Okay. Next, any more for Grise? No. Next is Erica Hickey. All those in favor of Erica Hickey? We have West. Okay. Twig. All those in favor of Twig? We have Cheryl. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I feel like someone hasn't voted. Don't we have 7 people here?
Do you vote, Gwen?
I voted for Walter, Vasika and Merritt for Walter, Becerra. Oh wait, Brian, who are you
I
voting?
voted for Walter as well.
Okay, sorry, I missed that then. Okay, so we have, for Walter, we have Merritt, Vasika, Jones, and Losberg, von Losberg. And then the other nominations each have 1 vote. So that means that Walter gets the nomination. Agreed? Okay, and Lisa, did you hear the votes clearly enough?
I did. Thank you, Gwen.
Okay. So although this was not a unanimous vote, is there consensus that this can go under the consent agenda? Yes, very good. Thank you, everyone. This was very exciting. And I do think we need to clarify this in our rules because it's always confusing and yet we're trying to do it equitably. So
I'm trying to remember if anyone, when we have appointed council members for vacancies, we've had multiple candidates and we had rounds. I can't remember the finer points of how, so I think we have a process that is somewhat similar to what we just did, but I'll have to look at the details.
I wonder if Jordan might remember.
I remember that you guys all went and voted for each one of the candidates, and whatever candidate finally had the most votes, I think, moved up. That's why I got confused with the scenario, because I thought we were all going to vote for all the candidates, and then
yeah, we went multiple rounds.
Yeah.
Till someone got, maybe it was rounds until majority. Anyway, I apologize.
Okay.
Well managed, Gwen.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your service and your time today. We went a little bit late, but we had a lot of interviews, and I do think our subcommittee on interviews is a good vehicle. Every once in a while we can do this, but it's also good having the subcommittee vehicle. So we'll revisit that one also. Okay, thank you so much. We will be adjourned.